Welcome back to the Throwing Chairs podcast, brought to you by the Hoosier Network. I'm Audrey Marr, joined today by Joe Cronin, Thomas Crow, and Ben Haller. Happy Friday, guys. How's everyone doing?
Doing great, Audrey.
We're here. Winter break pretty much starting. I don't know.
For media students.
For media students, it's pretty much starting because how much of us do have in-person finals?
Zero. I'm going home
That
in approximately 2 hours.
Oh, wow, good for you.
That's very nice.
You're still here just because of the
Just
Just
That's
because,
podcast.
look at this dedication.
Yeah.
Dedication to the
Wow.
beat race is what we call it.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Be all the way back in Cincinnati by now.
Wow.
Yeah. Dedication.
The
is
5
the
You're
best.
not even from Cincinnati. You're from Mason, Ohio. That's like outside of Cincinnati. That's as
Yeah.
much as Cincinnati as Xavier is in Cincinnati.
All right.
Well-known Xavier basketball.
Well, this isn't about Xavier basketball. Let's just get into the reason why we're all here. Indiana basketball heads over to Lincoln to face Nebraska tonight. Hoosiers now 8-2 on the season, 1-0 in Big Ten play. The Hoosiers conference slate started on Monday when Minnesota came to town. Indiana came out with the 82-67 win. And that was arguably Indiana's best showing of the season. I would say I want to go all around to all of you. Ben, I will start with you. What kind of stood out to everybody from that game, and what adjustments were the most noticeable for Indiana?
The first thing that stood out to me, I've talked about it a lot on Twitter, different places, but I think the most impressive part about the team as a whole in the season has just been the balance and the scoring depth that this team has. There's so many different guys that have the ability to score 15 points a game like Nebraska where they had 5 guys in double figures. And a couple of those guys coming off the bench too is big. Luke Goody and Caden Carlisle. Carlisle had been not Luke Goody, rather. It was Bryson Tucker and Caden Carlisle. Carlisle had been injured, so he was coming off the bench for the first time all season against Minnesota. And then Bryson Tucker had struggled a little bit in the last few games, but both of them came up, put 14, 15-plus on the board. Bryson Tucker did it all in the mid-range, and we're starting to see the kind of player that Tucker is, and he's making a contribution as a freshman. And then Caden Carlisle was big for me to see him knock down a couple of threes. We know how well he can do getting to the basket. He's really a guy who plays off the dribble, but if he can add a little bit of that spot-up shooting from beyond the arc to his game, that could be big for the depth of this Indiana offense.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I get 2 different things. First of all, to the scoring that you just talked about, Ben, but particularly the front court. I think Indiana has one of the best front courts in the entire nation when firing on all cylinders. Malik Renew had 16 on 7 of 10 shooting. Umar Ballo had 18 on 5 of 5 shooting. You had 8 from 11 at the line. Mackenzie Mbako, 13 points. Didn't shoot particularly efficiently. And then Bryson Tucker that you just mentioned, 16 points, 6 of 10 shooting. When those 4 guys are firing on all cylinders, I think Indiana might have one of the best front courts in the entire nation, and the guards are complementary. Speaking of the guards, my other point, I haven't been particularly positive on Miles Rice in the last couple weeks. I think seeing what happened in the Bahamas put a sour taste not just in my mouth, but I think in a lot of people's mouths. I think kind of brought up some questions about his grit, if he really is an Indiana true point guard, if he's a guy who can lead this team. I have kind of a little bit of a different taste after this game. He only scored 2 points. He actually only shot 1 for 4. It's not very good, but 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, 3 plus minus. If you just look at the box of this game, you're not going to be impressed with how Miles Rice looks. But if you actually watch this game, I thought Miles Rice was one of the most valuable players on the floor for Indiana. I thought he was doing a lot. I thought he was getting to the rim well. His shots weren't going down, but passing well, getting his teammates involved. I think when Miles Rice kind of plays this brand of basketball, not only is it going to open him up to score better, but I think it's going to open up his team better.
I will say to that point, this team can adapt really well because the guard play, if you just look again at the box score, was poor. With Galloway had 1 point on his 1 of 4 from the free throw line. That was a big thing for me. Is 62% from the charity stripe, and Umar Ballo was 8 for 11, so he was not the problem in this situation. Yeah. Where at times, he's gone 3 for 6 or something like that. Great game from Ballo. I think a game like this, they attacked the glass well and showed that front court depth and showed how just tough Renew and Ballo can actually be. And at a time where I don't think we've really seen that at all this season. And for those two to start to click a little more when there are questions, is this too big lineup going to work? It looks like it can for certain stretches in in games, but I will say with the guard play, again, when you're just a box score merchant, you will look at a performance like Rice and might be a little concerned. I do think he is active on defense, and he's, again, able to get to the rim, create some other opportunities, get to his teammates. I still want more. This is a guy who's been playing really well at home, and this was probably his worst home performance. Granted, it was the best home team that Indiana's probably played outside of South Carolina. But again, he had, 16 against South Carolina back a month ago now? Wow, it was a while ago. But I've been a little disappointed with Trey Galloway. Coming back for his 5th year, this is supposed to be the guy like understands all facets of this team, because Mbako, obviously only a sophomore, amongst some of the other returners. I mean, Bryson Tucker's a freshman, and then the plethora of transfers that come in. Galloway has just not played that well. And he's turned the ball over a lot. I get it. He's been risky. He's trying to just throw it out, get in transition, run with this athletic team. It just hasn't been working. Something has been working for him. But the thing is, with kind of this adaptation, is it hasn't been a problem point where this team is suffering as a result. Yes, the Bahamas happened, where it's like, those 2 glaring losses. Again, it was the Bahamas. They're at a vacation destination. Something bad is going to happen, and that's why teams tend to have poor performances when they go to places like the Bahamas, Hawaii, wherever they go. With Galloway, though, especially in a stadium that he's been playing in for 5 years now, it's like, come on, this is the time where he kind of needs to step up and be that leader, and I just haven't seen that as much. I still think he's effective on defense, he's effective on the ball, but it's just, I don't know. There's something that seems to be missing this season as compared to his freshman, sophomore year. He's coming off the bench, and it was like, oh, this is the guy that's going to be here for the long haul. But I don't know, something's off.
I wonder if he's fully healthy.
That is true.
Coming in the year, he wasn't.
That's what I was going to say. I think it does play a part to the recovery process that he's gone through. He does say he's at 100% health, but that's also granted that this is a much different Indiana system that he's used to playing with and that this Indiana team is used to having. And, I mean, overall, though, I agree with your point that he wasn't playing to his best ability, but I think overall what stood out to me in this Minnesota game was, leaving Trey Galloway out of that, but overall the connection on the court. I think with the 5 Hoosiers in double digits, 21 assists, that's still not great, but it's better that Indiana's seen in the last couple games. And the defense, to me, had the best performance of the season, and I attribute that to the return of Kanan Carlisle. I think Indiana does really need a healthy Kanan Carlisle. And when Trey Galloway isn't performing to that kind of, to what he's capable of playing as, I think Kanan Carlisle fills that role. And I mean, as many people have said, he's definitely a pest on the defensive end. He also had 5 assists, banked 3 of Indiana's 4 3-point shots on Monday. So he's the piece to the puzzle that Indiana's been missing in my eyes. And I think it just showed on Monday night. Again, like Indiana does kind of need that presence that they hadn't had in the Bahamas. Even he wasn't playing to Kanan's best ability, but overall, I think just Kanan does play a massive role into how this Hoosier team can be. And again, with Miles Rice not playing to the best, Kanan Carlisle does fill that kind of like Swiss Army knife kind of guard. And Indiana needs that, especially if Umar Ballo, Malik Renew, if the front court isn't kind of producing how they're used to producing, they need that guard play. And overall, go ahead.
I will add, like, with the defense, they played pretty clean. Only 14 team fouls compared to the 24 that Minnesota had. And I forget which game. Was it the Sam Houston game where there was just ticky-tack fouls? Like,
yeah.
There was like
that
40,
was like
40-something on fouls in the game.
It's like a 3-hour game.
Yeah. But no, I will say with the defense, they need to start generating some more turnovers. I understand, like, if you're beating teams by 15, take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. They got to start getting out and transitioning and run, because they're still turning the ball over more than their opponents. They had 14 turnovers to the Minnesota 12. I get it, you won, so it's like that's just one thing. And I'm just kind of cherry-picking some stats here, but I don't know. To play good defense, you want to be able to force the other team to make mistakes. And they haven't done that as much. It seems like they're just kind of playing the long shot clock game, which still is good defense. But, sometimes the good offense will beat the good defense.
No, and I'm with you entirely. I think Indiana is a team with so much athleticism, and when you have such an athletic team, being in the half court doesn't really benefit you that much. If I'm Mike Woods and I'm getting Indiana out and running as much as you possibly can, you have fast guards, you have bigs who can fly, wings who can fly. get them going up and down the court. I'm gonna keep preaching this until it continues to until it happens.
Yeah.
I think Indiana has to get out in transition more.
Ball's a big dude, but he knows how to rim run. Like he can get to his spots.
Wire to
Also,
wire.
Malik Renew, 1 foul. Like
Yeah.
There we go.
the jokes
True.
were there last year that he enters the game with 2 fouls and he finished the game with 1.
How about that for an
Good for
adjustment?
him.
That's
Good for
probably
him.
the biggest adjustment that Indiana's seen.
Right.
So, I mean, overall, I agree. I think they have the pieces. They just need to kind of put them together. They have all the capabilities to be a top 25 team, to be a team that makes it in March. But overall, a lot of ball left to be played. Big Ten play continues tonight. Indiana takes on Nebraska. Last time the two faced each other was when Keisei Tominaga and the Cornhuskers sent the Hoosiers packing in the Big Ten tournament. 30-point blowout. I mean, completely different teams, though, this time on both sides of the ball. But Joe, I'll start with you. What intrigues you the most heading into this matchup?
So the thing about the Big Ten is just how it's old as time that any team can beat any team, and the home crowd, the home environment makes such a difference, especially in the Big Ten conference. I mean, you can joke and say that every single team in the conference could go 10-10 this year just with the home and road games. With Nebraska, they've kind of built up more of a culture than they've ever had with the past couple seasons. Fred Hoiberg has done a tremendous job. I mean, Nebraska's a hard place to win. They don't have a lot of basketball history. They're able to make the tournament. They had an awesome player to watch with Keisei Tominaga. He's no longer there. Pretty much all their starters were gone, except I believe it was Bryce Williams, right? He's the lone starter that is still there. So a lot of roster turnover. They're still figuring out some of the pieces, but they can pick off teams. They went at Creighton. That's a tough team and won. I get that's a rivalry, so there's a little bit more on that line. But then they also were at Michigan State for their first Big Ten game and lost by 27. Yeah. You're getting two ends of the spectrum with this team. They're inconsistent. They have the ability, because Connor Essegian transfer over from Wisconsin, he's been playing some good ball, shooting like 42% from downtown. Definitely a threat for an Indiana team where we've talked about this perimeter defense being an issue at times early in this season. With that home crowd, I think this is a Nebraska team that's going to want to try and shoot the ball early. They're okay at defense. I think they're solid enough where they can maybe make a couple of the Indiana guys cause some troubles. But I don't know. I think, obviously, with the athleticism and talent, there's not going to be many teams that Indiana doesn't stack up in that regard. It's just, do they come to play? That's where it comes down to. Is the effort, is the toughness there? And that was something, it was after the Bahamas, right? When Luke Goody was like, we just got out toughed. I don't know if that's the correct word. I might be making up a phrase with that, but that is where it comes.
It was something along
those lines. And it's just like, if they can bring a level of toughness to these road environments where, it might be a little low scoring because that's just the way the Big Ten brand of basketball is sometimes. That's if they can match that level and win these kind of gritty games on the road, this is a good test start of the season. Obviously, the Big Ten slate is tough, when you have to play UCLA, Purdue twice, stuff like that. This right now, especially before the turn of the new year, for Indiana, if they want to traject their season upwards and have fans back at Assembly come January, good start is going to win in Nebraska.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say, you kind of say this every week before every game, but I would say that this is the biggest test for Indiana at this point of the season. What I'm looking at is if Indiana can produce from deep. And, can't talk. Nebraska's opponents average 10 made three-pointers a game. While they do, it's only a 33% three-point percentage. Still, it's kind of just if you can get hot, if you can kind of maintain that momentum. And Indiana has all the parts to do that. And I can see them doing that. They have to just come out early. I think they get Mackenzie Mbako the ball early. They give it to him and see if he can produce. Same with Kanan Carlisle. He was hot from beyond the arc. So it just depends on how they use all of their pieces. And another part that I'm really going to be looking at is if they can keep control of the ball. This is, on the road, is one of Indiana's glaring issues is when they just keep on turning the ball over. When they start to do it, they just head down a spiral. And that's probably, it's an issue at home, but it's definitely the biggest issue for Indiana when they get on the road. This is the first true road game of the season. So especially with this new roster, it's going to be really just how they put it all together, if they put it all together, really, and if they play like they did against Minnesota. Again, I'd say, in a sense, Minnesota and Nebraska are similarly matched. You don't think so, Ben?
No.
No?
Minnesota will be the worst team in the Big Ten this year by far. You look at the metrics. 160 in the net, 115 in Ken Palm. The only close team in the Big Ten to Minnesota that might give them a run for the toilet bowl is Washington. But other than that, I mean, that's what I was going to get to. My point was
Say it
like,
lightly, Ben.
I'll let you continue your point. But like, if there are tiers to the Big Ten, like every year everything's jumbled. Minnesota and Washington are so bad. They're so bad.
Yeah.
But I'll let you continue.
Those are
I
the teams that
agree.
are not going to qualify for the Big Ten tournament, is what we're saying.
And there's
Listen.
one more. Northwestern, it could be Nebraska, could be USC.
That's what I mean.
We'll see.
It could
Yeah,
be.
absolutely.
So I was kind of basing it off of their performance against Minnesota. You go to
Yeah.
Minnesota and you beat Creighton, then you almost lose by 30 to your first Big Ten opponent. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of pieces for both of these teams to kind of put together. It's just on a matter of which this is a very high chance of happening, that Nebraska comes out. They haven't played since Saturday. Now they went into this week. And they saw all these pieces that they're missing. Now they come out hot and they put it all out on Indiana. So it just is a matter of, if that happens, who puts it all together and who keeps control of the game early. But I want to move on. What do you guys kind of see Indiana needing to kind of do to keep control of Nebraska, to come out early, take control of the game? And who does Indiana need to watch out for this Nebraska team?
Yeah. To go back to the point that you both just made, I think it's worth noting that they actually lost to Michigan State by 37.
Oh, it was 37? I got my
37?
math wrong. It was
37.
It was 52 to 89. That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's bad.
And
Yeah.
Holy cow.
you were harping on Indiana for kind of coming out not, laying eggs at points. When you beat a team like Creighton and then you lose by 37 to Michigan State, I think that kind of flips the point to a certain degree of how does Nebraska come out? I mean, clearly
Yeah.
that Fred Hoiberg does not have them ready for every single game. So I think that's something to look at. But the point I want to make for what Indiana needs to watch out for is counter siege. And I think 8 points in their loss to St. Mary's, 2 points in their loss to Michigan State. In their win against Creighton, he had 15. He had 29 in another game, 22 in a different game. I think Connor Seagen's kind of the player that you have to watch out for if you want to win a game. Connor Seagen is 12th all-time in Indiana in scoring, high school scoring. He scored 2,526 points. That's an absurd list. I mean, look at this, Ben. Look at the guys he's with.
very
Romeo
good list.
Langford, Damon Bailey, Luke Brown, Deshaun Thomas. Like, that's an insane list of players on that high school scoring list. So I think
Romeo
Kenan
Langford
Carl-
mentioned in 2024.
There we go.
Chairs
Still
podcast.
there. Still there. You mentioned Kenan Carlisle. I think he will guard a season. And coach I used to have always used to use the term blue collar hooper. And I think that perfectly describes Kenan Carlisle. Gets dirty when it needs to, plays good defense. And I think he'll do that against the season tonight. If he does that, Indiana wins.
I think there's two interesting points you brought up about the margin of victory against Michigan State. Okay, if you look at the metrics right now for Nebraska, it's really interesting comparing it to Indiana's schedule. Because if you look at both the net and Ken Palm, Nebraska is very similar in both of those to two teams. One team they did very well against and one team they did very bad against. Nebraska is just 4 spots behind Louisville in both of those, in Ken Palm and net. They're also just 5 or 6 spots ahead of South Carolina, who Indiana did very well against. That's just to kind of put into perspective, I think, how talented of a team Nebraska is. The defensive efficiency for Nebraska is 33rd of the country, actually. I think what the problem with their defense is, you look at the Michigan State game, in a couple of their 2 losses, it happened at St. Mary's too. They had a big lead against St. Mary's. What happened was once you start to break their defense down, like if there's any defense in the country that you can get hot against and then just keep getting hotter, it's Nebraska. They break down a little bit. If they start a game strong and stay consistent throughout a game like they did against Creighton, it can actually be a pretty good defense. So I think the biggest key for Indiana is being able to score early. Mike Woodson's going to have to draw some things up early. I'd like to see some sets early to get some open threes because, like you said, they give up 10 threes per game. That's not good. That's the worst part of their defense. Even if it's at 33%, that's not the best percentage, but that just means that teams are taking a lot more threes because they're getting a lot more open threes.
Yeah.
Because obviously the 3-point attempts has to be very large if it's 10 made per game and a 33% clip. So they have to at least try to shoot the 3-ball early. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But the scoring early and breaking the defense down is the biggest thing for me.
Well, the 33% is tied for 220th in the entire nation, so that's not great. if you're looking with our metric merchant, Mr. Ben Haller here. My big thing with this one, because you guys kind of touched on all the basketball points, it's crowd. Indiana is the only team in the conference that has not played a road game yet.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a Nebraska, crowd that has been built up from the ground up, 15,000 strong. Indiana has not played in an atmosphere with 15,000 people in it yet this season. They have not played a road game. They had 3 neutral-sided games where their fans
Atlanta
were more right.
Is nothing like what
Exactly.
you'll see in Lincoln.
And in the Bahamas, it was more Indiana fans
100%.
than the Louisville and the Gonzaga and I imagine Providence as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be my big thing. And again, with the Big Ten on the road. That's glaring right there. Do the guards get rattled a little bit? Has Miles Rice been in atmospheres like this all that much? He comes from Washington State. I don't know.
Away from Assembly Hall, it hasn't been good for him yet.
Away from Assembly Hall hasn't been great for him. I understand it's only a 3-game sample size, but still. I mean,
Yeah.
Trey Galloway, also a guy that last year, it was night and day between Assembly Hall performance and the road performance.
Mhm.
And again, back with the guards. That's where it all matters because Umar Ballo, he will get his. Malik Renew will get his. These are guys that are going to be fairly consistent this entire season because realistically, what team is going to be able to stop them at the same time? I get it, but it's like they're going to get theirs. That's just what happens when you have a 7-footer and another, 6'9", 6'10" guy who's very effective around, that 8 to 12 foot range and now is extended beyond and has that athleticism that Renew does. It's with the guards, and I think the crowd will play. Well, I don't know how much of a factor because of I don't know what Nebraska finals week looks like
Yeah.
over in
Well, it's a
Cornhusker
Friday.
country.
Most
It is a
teams-
Friday.
Friday night.
It's a Friday
Yeah.
in Lincoln, Nebraska. What else is happening?
This is finals
no
week for most
football.
schools.
They're
That's
not
a-
They
there.
don't have football.
Well, they got a bowl game to prep
Oh,
for.
no, they have Dylan Raiola.
What bowl game are they at?
Oh, they don't have Dylan Royal anymore, right? Or was that a fake?
That was
That was fake.
That
I
was
think he's
fake.
leaving.
Yeah.
He's getting so.
That was like
He is probably
on
getting
you.
so much money to stay there.
Yeah,
You
but he
just
could probably get
worried
so much money
every
somewhere else.
Nebraska fan that
Well,
that listens to us.
If there's
Yeah.
a Nebraska fan listening,
All of them.
I was just
Wait, are they in the?
joking
Are
around.
they in the? Are they in the Detroit Bowl?
No, they're in the Big
No.
Ten.
What? No, for the bowl game. They were what 6-6 this season.
Yeah, they might be pinstripe.
Is it Mayo? No, they're not in the Mayo.
We're off topic.
I know. I'm
We're
just
off
thinking like, what else is there to do? So students will go probably. I don't know.
Pinstripe
I
for
do see
Nebraska.
attendance. Pinstripe bowl. Okay, I do see attendance probably being on a good note for Nebraska. But that kind of goes into my next question. This is the first true road game of the season. Does Indiana kind of change that narrative of not being able to play on the road? That's been a problem throughout the whole last couple seasons. Big problem in the Bahamas. I personally say yes. I may be betting my words, but I think that this Minnesota game, in a sense, was a big turning point for Indiana. Another turning point was the battle for Atlanta's tournament. I don't think Indiana wants to go out and have a showing like they did in these last couple of things. They walked out embarrassed. And I think while this is a relatively new roster, they know what it looks like playing on the road now. It was a neutral site, but still, they know what it can look like playing against a conference opponent. They know what it can play like they know what it can look like playing on a different court. So I think this will, in a sense, be the biggest test to see what they can do. Overall, I do see them passing the test.
I always feel like the toughest road game of a season can almost be the first one, just because
Yeah.
you're not used to it. I just don't think that Atlantis is anything like what they're going to see in Lincoln. I think that if this game's later in the season, I have confidence in Indiana. I actually have a lot of confidence in Indiana if it's later in the season because I think they match up well overall on the court. And I'm not saying I'm definitely predicting a loss here, but I think that you're not seeing the best version of Indiana tonight.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there will be their kind of weak spots. I think they're going to probably be a little bit glaring, especially in the beginning of the game. I know we said like something that they need to do is come out, take control early in this game. I don't personally see them doing that. I think Nebraska will come out. They're coming off of a 37-point loss. I mean, I don't know I don't think you can come out of a loss like that and play like you did in that 37-point loss. But I see them taking control maybe in the second half. This Indiana team has been one to not play all 40 minutes just yet. they play in a certain point of the game. So I don't think it's going to be the early part of the game. I think it'll maybe be towards the end of the first half, coming out of the second half, maybe ending a little bit slow, but just kind of figuring out in what parts that will be.
Yeah, I think you guys both hit the nail on the head. This is 2 egg-laying teams, Nebraska and Indiana. And so kind of the argument becomes, okay, Nebraska's laid an egg at home, lost to St. Mary's. St. Mary's is a good team, but they lost to St. Mary's at home. Indiana has laid constant eggs, especially when they travel. You look at Atlantis, Louisville, Gonzaga. So it's which coach, which former NBA player, which former NBA coach can now get their squad ready to go. I think for Indiana to win, they have to get stops. Nebraska's shooting 44%, which for anyone who doesn't know, 44% is really bad. Really, 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 really bad.
We were talking about that a little earlier.
145 in the nation, 44% is really bad. I mean, Indiana's only shooting, I think, 50% from the, 50, almost 51%. That's a 7% difference. But like I said, they're at home. Are they going to shoot better at home? I don't know. They shot 44% against St. Mary's, which kind of apropos. But I think that's where the battle comes is, does Nebraska make shots? Do they get good shots, or does Indiana force them off the
What? I'm going to ask this in kind of to Ben's point with this might not be the best version of Indiana because it's their first road test.
Mm-hmm.
Rather it be against Nebraska in a time like this than having to go to like Iowa or Purdue or Illinois. Like is a game where Indiana is on, like you said, not gonna have their best performance, still give them a chance against the Nebraska team as compared to some of the other teams, where on the road where it'd be more glaring, especially like a Purdue, because I don't think.
I mean, you compare it to Purdue. Like,
I understand that, but I'm cherry picking some of the better one, like Michigan State or the Michigan even.
Well, I mean, there's definitely like levels to it. Like they could, like, once again, not to pick on these two teams again, but they go into Washington or Minnesota on the road. I think we could get a win, but if it was us on the court. But
the IU Sports Media Intramural.
Nebraska.
Well, no.
That game will never see the light of day.
Hold up, okay, I think if that game showed anything, is that no, I don't.
That's true. My point though is that I think. Okay, if you take like maybe not Purdue, but if you take like the 5th best team in the Big Ten, don't know who it is right now. I think Nebraska is closer to that than they are to Minnesota or Washington.
I mean, right now it's
Nebraska has a talented starting 5. Bryce Williams is really good.
Yeah.
No? Connor Season's good. Yeah. Indiana's seen him a very good amount.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've noticed in these last couple seasons is that if there's a team that gives Indiana trouble early, it's Nebraska.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that it will happen. It'll be a hard game for Indiana to win. And there's no telling that they will, but it just kind of, like I said before, like we all said before it comes out, it matters of who comes out early and who takes control early in this game. And they just have to come in with a game plan and stick to it. I think that's the biggest thing. And yeah, I mean, see what works early, but stick to the closest thing you have prepared heading into it.
Yeah, that's as good of a point as anyone's made all podcast, Audrey. We can... You win the Thomas Crow Good Point Award.
Wow.
Okay.
Of the episode. Sorry, you were there. But back to it. We can talk about Nebraska losing to Michigan State by 37 all we want to, but like you just said, what happened when Indiana played Nebraska last?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that game's not that different. Okay, the Indiana, I think the number was they ended up losing to Louisville by 29.
Yeah.
But we all know that was worse than 29 points.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was a very similar game, and Michigan State is a heck of a lot better team than Louisville is. So, I mean,
Yes.
it's not like that was an abysmal loss for Nebraska, but like Indiana fans like don't have much room to talk in that area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Indiana has not beat Nebraska since the year was 2022, by the way. December 7th of 2022. It's the last time Indiana.
It's almost what?
Just 2 years ago.
It's over 2.
It's 2 years ago.
We're near 2025.
Wow.
We are at the back stretch of 2024. Mike Woodson's on a 3-game losing streak
We're in the
to Nebraska.
We've already turned the 4th and final turn. I mean,
They lost.
Wow.
checkered
Ooh,
flag is
that
out.
would be crazy. They lost 3 times in the year 2024 to Nebraska. They have a chance to lose to a 4th time in this year, in this calendar year.
That is pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievable
Wow.
number.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Because the first matchup last season was January 3rd, then they played February 21st, and then it was the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
And then now,
Yeah.
obviously.
If I already didn't give out the good point of the podcast award, that would have jumped in.
Okay.
Rats!
Sorry.
No,
All right.
Audrey's
All right.
already got
We're going too far off track. So final point. Let's kind of go with our MVP score predictions rapid fire. Thomas, I'll start with you.
Help side defense again?
Rebounding.
All right.
Rebounding.
Nebraska's
score
106th in the nation in rebounding with only 37 a game. And like I said, they're 145th in the nation with 44% shooting. Indiana's got to dominate the boards. That they dominate the boards, they win the game. They win the game 81-77.
predictions. Okay. I'm going to kind of go along with you. I'm going to go Umar Bala, though. I think he's going to have a big game. He's the biggest man on the court. So I think it just kind of depends on if he can get the boards. He did not have, I think he had 7 rebounds in the last game compared to almost 20 in the game before that. So
prior.
18 prior. So kind of just to see if he does have that big performance again. They'll need him to have a big performance. So if he does, I'm going to go 85-80 Indiana.
You and me?
Yeah.
All right. My MVP is Fred Hoiberg,
Okay.
the Nebraska head coach.
Okay.
I think he's I think he's going deep in the bag. He's going to be like a grandma reaching for candy. Deep in the bag. The ATOs he's going to draw up in this one, they're going to be good. Nebraska's looking for a win. Like we said, a 37-point loss, what they're coming off of. That's embarrassing. Fred Hoiberg knows that. As the coach of this team, with this home crowd on his back, Nebraska's going to win. They're going to win by 12, I say. They're going to win 78-66. And it's another this team can't play on the road quite yet.
Freddie Berg ain't getting embarrassed twice.
I got Freddie Berg and the boys again.
Freddie Berg.
As well as Joe.
What are we doing?
I think Connor Seagen.
Quad wins in the year 2024.
Yeah. It's bound to happen. Connor Seagen, I think, is going to hit a few threes. I think the 3-point is where I think Nebraska.
The Windies 4 for 4.
The talent level on this Nebraska team is just better, at least from the 3-point level, is what the point I'm trying to get at, is better than it's showed right now. And I think at some point that means that it's going to break through. So I think they have a pretty good 3-point shooting game led by Connor Seagen. I like 77-72 a Nebraska win.
All right. Well, that'll do
Freddie
it.
Berg.
We're going to end it
This
there.
episode has just proved that Audrey has the toughest job in the entire
Yeah,
world.
having to manage
Anyway. No, we're just going to end it there.
Freddie
We're ending it there.
Berg.
That'll do it for this week's episode of Throwing Chairs. Make sure to tune in tonight as the Hoosiers will take on Nebraska at Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln at 8 p.m. Eastern. Game is on Fox. We will have all your coverage here at the Hoosier Network, so make sure to stay tuned. Still one more week until college football playoff takes over. Kick back, relax, let basketball take the wheel. Have a great weekend, Hoosier fans, and we will see you next week.